Hello viewers, we welcome you to our program on leadership and its different styles. In this session, we shall be discussing three major issues. First of all, leadership in educational organizations. This will be followed by meaning and nature of leadership, and towards the end of the session, we shall be taking up different styles of leadership. Now, the term leader, the term leadership, these are quite commonly used. They are frequently used in our daily life. But you may ask, who is a leader? What are the qualities that make a person a leader? Are there a set of attributes responsible for making a person a leader? Or is the situation responsible for making a leader? Well friends, in this session, let us try to find the answers to these questions. So, we shall begin this session with the topic leadership in educational organizations. Now, as we all know, educational organizations are mainly set up with an altruistic motive. They are generally not meant to be profit-making organizations. Hence, they are called non-profit organizations. And in educational organizations, unlike in industries, the chief or the main resource happen to be the human resource, whereas in industries, the main resources are the material resources, whether the material resources are goods or even we have services. But in educational organizations, the chief kind of resource is the human resource. And secondly, in educational organizations, the main focus happens to be on the human element and not on goods and other materials. And this is what makes the educational organizations quite different from the business sector, the industries. And as we know, dealing with human beings has got its own complexities. Now you may say that the concept of leadership was initially started in the field of industries, but now we have borrowed it in the field of education. In view of the differences that we have just cited, namely that human resource is the main resource and the focus is on the human element, is the concept of leadership, which is applicable in the field of industries, also applicable in the field of education? Well, the answer could be yes, because in spite of differences, there are certain basic similarities too. For instance, the leader, whether he is in an industry or in the field of education, has to achieve certain goals. Educational organizations, just like industrial organizations, too have certain goals, certain objectives, and they are to be fulfilled. And secondly, the leader in both kinds of organizations have to provide direction, have to motivate, guide, so that the people can strive towards the achievement of goals. Then there are also the processes like planning, budgeting, decision making, implementing the decisions, carrying out feedback studies and things like that. So we see that there are certain basic similarities between educational organizations as well as the industrial organizations. Hence, the concept of leaderships are very much applicable even to educational organizations. Now, as we have been discussing that leadership, and again there is a term called management. Now, what is the difference between leadership and management? Well, first of all, I would like to say that a leader has followers. A leader has followers, while a manager has subordinates. A leader tries to guide the people so that they can emulate him and try towards the achievement of goals. Whereas a manager is undoubtedly concerned about the goals, but he may or may not be so much concerned about the people working within the organization. So just as I have said that a manager has got subordinates, he is more concerned about the structure of the organization. The roles are fixed who is to do what, when, etc. So the pattern that underlies the organization, the structure, the tasks, the goals, these are the elements that are important for a manager. But for a leader, apart from the goal, the people happen to be very important. So this is the difference between a leader and a manager. And as I have already said, in educational organizations, human elements are more important. They are the most important element. Hence, taking them along with him so that the goals can be achieved is a very tough and demanding role. The leaders in educational organizations do have a very challenging role. Well friends, now that we have discussed leadership in educational organizations, let us start with the next topic, that is the meaning and nature of leadership. As I had posed a question earlier, what is exactly meant by leadership? Who is a leader? Well, let us try to find the answer. Now, before we try to seek the answer, I would like to pose another question. Is a person leader only due to the virtue of the position that he or she occupies? Is it only the rank or the position from which emanate the ability to lead? Or are there some other factors too? Well, we know that position is very important in any organization, whether it is an educational organization or it is a business house or an industry, whatever it is, in any organization the position happens to be very important. And it cannot be denied that due to the virtue of the position that a person occupies, emanate power and authority. And these two things are essential. But there are certainly other factors too. Merely occupying an important position or a position in the higher echelons of a hierarchy will not make a person a leader, or will not even make a person a successful manager. So it is not the position alone that is important. There are other factors too. For instance, the knowledge of the person occupying that particular position, knowledge regarding the various divisions or units of the organization, at least the functional knowledge of what is going on, the objectives, what is to be achieved, whether they are in the perspective of the goals of the philosophy of the organization, whether they follow the rules of the nation, and things like that. Similarly, apart from the knowledge, a leader also has to be well versed with certain skills. Now, these skills are of two types, mainly of two types. First of all, the administrative skills. Now, what are administrative skills? Well, how to motivate people, how to take decisions, what sort of decisions are to be taken, how to go about their implementation, then planning, then again preparing the budget, management of different kinds of resources, financial resources, material resources, in educational organization also curricular resources. So these are some of the administrative skills. Then again, very important skill is the interpersonal skill. The ability to carve out teams from groups, or rather I should say to convert the groups into teams, so that the people within the organization work harmoniously. They have a sort of synchronization among them. There is an understanding among them. They feel that they have got some common goals. The people strive towards achievement of the same goals, and this is the responsibility of the leader, to get people work as a team and not in an isolated manner for only their individual progress. The progress of the organization has to be kept in mind. So this happens to be the interpersonal skill. Now, apart from knowledge, skill, the attitudes are also equally important. The attitude of the leader towards the organization, towards its goals, towards the people, towards his own position and things like that. So we see that the functioning of the leader is reflected in the functioning of the organization, which again is a mirror to the ethos, the values, the philosophy, the personality and the abilities of the leader. So as I have been saying that the role of a leader in an educational organization is a challenging one. And then again, for leadership we could say there are well known definitions, and we could sum them up and say that it is the process of influencing people so that they willingly strive to achieve certain goals. So from this definition, first of all, influencing people, this is the first factor within this definition. Influencing people for what? For the achievement of goals. So there are two factors, influencing people and achievement of goals. Now in the managerial jargon we could call it people orientation, that is the attitude towards the people, and the attitude or the orientation towards the goal. Now we see that consideration for the goals or for the organization or the system, these are all synonymous, is very important. But at the same time, the consideration for people happens to be equally important. A leader has two main functions. First of all, his orientation towards goals and then orientation towards people. So we see that in the managerial language, in the language of management, we call it orientation towards task or task orientation and people orientation. So we have been discussing the meaning and nature of leadership, and now we know that a leader has two main orientations, the first towards task and the next towards people, and both happen to be equally important. We shall carry on with this discussion later on. Now coming to the orientations of leaders, let us have a detailed discussion on it. Now as we have been saying that task orientation and relation orientation are both equally important for a leader. Now let us first of all take up relationship orientation, people orientation. A leader cannot work alone. A leader, howsoever effective he or she may be, cannot act in isolation and claim that he or she has achieved the goals of the organization. It is just not possible. He needs the cooperation, the active cooperation of the people who are working with him. So he has to influence the people through his own behavior, which has got to be exemplary, and motivate them. Motivating people is one of the most important tasks of a leader. And as I have given the definition of leadership, influencing people so that they willingly strive towards the achievement of goals. The educational leaders have to motivate people in such a way that the people feel that it is in their interest to pursue the goals of the organization. It is not a compulsion. It is not due to coercion. So, relationship orientation is very important for a leader. And besides that, the knowledge, as I have been just discussing, what is going on where, what are the different divisions, the different units. It is quite true that it is not humanly possible for a person to be well versed in the activities that go on or the functioning, the detailed functioning that goes on in the different units. But the leader must possess at least the working knowledge. he must be aware of the objectives, how the objectives of a particular unit happen to be fit into the major goals of the organization. What are the deadlines? When a thing is to be done, where, how it is to be done, what are the resources to be allocated, how best to make the resources fully usable. So, and finally, why to go about a particular activity in a particular division. So, knowledge for a leader is very important. And as I have already discussed, administrative skills and interpersonal skills, these are also very important. Now coming to a question. We often hear of successful leaders, and then again there are effective leaders. Are these two terms synonymous? Well, no, these two terms are not synonymous. Successful leaders are more task oriented. They are more concerned about the achievement of goals. Well, it cannot be denied that that is what organizations have been established for. But the people within these organizations feel that as if they are working either under duress or because they are paid, therefore it is their duty. It is not a willingness that comes from within. That is because the manager or the leader, who happens to be more of a manager in this particular case, is more task oriented. He has no genuine concern for the people, for their own demands. The ultimate aim is to achieve the goals. So, these leaders cannot bring about lasting changes in people. As soon as they leave, the people may get back to their slackness. Their slackness may again creep up within the organizations because the people were working under duress. They were not working willingly. Now, who is an effective leader? Well, an effective leader has genuine concern for both the goals as well as for the people. He strives to achieve the goals but not at the cost of the employees. He has genuine concern for relations, for the human elements. And as we know, the task orientation is a matter of past. During the time of Taylor, Ford, we had concept like task orientation where mass production, physical labor were emphasized. But since the time of the humanitarian school of thought brought about by Mary Follett, then the need for self-actualization being the highest need as projected by Maslow, since then it has been realized that in an organization, RO, relationship orientation, is equally important, and this is the modern view of management. So, an effective leader tries to motivate people, tries to bring within people long-lasting changes in attitude, tries that the people should inculcate certain values. The work culture and the work climate of the organization is conducive. Conflicts are minimized. The people are under less stress, tension, and they don't feel that they are working under duress or they are working just because they have to. They try to emulate the leader who, through his genuine concern for the people as well as his genuine concern for the organization, is exemplary. Therefore, he tries to motivate people, and the people feel that they have to submerge their own individual goals for the greater interest of the organization's goals. They feel that there is no difference between their own goals, personal goals, and the goals of the organization. That is, the people learn to identify their goals with the goals of the organization. And effective leaders bring about long-lasting changes in people. Hence, when effective leaders leave, the people keep on working. Slackness does not creep in, as in the case of successful leaders. While an effective leader usually is also a successful leader, but it may not be so the other way round. Now let us discuss the term leadership. So for that we shall carry out a discussion on the elements that comprise leadership. Well, it is difficult to make a list of the elements, to enlist the elements that comprise leadership. Why? Because it happens to be a comprehensive term with a very wide scope. Now, let us try to discuss some of the major elements that comprise leadership. First of all, the goals of the organization. A leader should have clarity about the goals of the organization. Where is the organization heading to? Why is it doing so? What goals have been set? Until and unless a leader has a very clear view, clear understanding of the goals of the organization, it goes without saying that neither he himself can strive towards achieving them, nor can he motivate others to achieve them. So, the first and foremost requirement is that the leader should have a clarity of the goals, why the institution or organization has been set up. Then, the vision and mission. These are again two very important elements of the goal. Vision. A leader should envision, should see that from certain years from now, what shape my organization is going to take. What would be its activities? In which position would it be? And accordingly, according to this particular vision, the leader has to chalk out the mission. That is, he has to formulate plans. He has to develop a budget. He has to take decisions. Then he has to implement the decisions, carry out follow-up studies, see how effective the plans have been. And then comes the very important element, that is resources. We know that in an organization there are different kinds of resources. Material resources or physical resources as we call them, financial resources, and finally human resource. I would like to repeat that in an educational organization, the human resource is considered to be the most important resource. And when it comes to financial resource, it has to be emphasized that in the educational organizations of not only the developing world but also in several countries of the developed nations, there is a shortage of funds. There is a shortage or scarcity of financial resources. So, how best to manage these resources? How to put them to optimum use? And how to mobilize resources? All these are the things with which a leader of an educational organization has to be concerned with. So, the management of resources, their updation, their generation or mobilization are very important for leaders. Then another point, that is communication. We know that communication is very important within an organization. It has to be timely. A message delivered late is of no use. Then it has to be specific. The person to whom it is being delivered should be in a position to understand what is required of him or her. It should not have any element of ambiguity. Therefore, it is very important for a leader to possess the skills of communication. It is for the leader to ensure that the employees are not relying too much on the grapevine, but on formal channels of communication. Then, as we have already discussed before, he should be able to motivate the people so that they have shared goals, so that there is more of teamwork and less of individualistic approach. People are working as teams with proper coordination in a harmonious manner. So, the resolution of conflicts is a very important activity to be performed by the leader on a continuous basis. If there are conflicts, there are groups, it's quite natural that they would be pulling each other apart and the organization in turn would be torn apart. So, it is for the leader to see that the goals are shared. The people working therein can identify their personal goals with the goals of the organization. Then, decision making. This is again very important, and as we know that there are many people who find it difficult to take correct decisions. There are certain errors in the decisions they happen to take. So, a leader has to exercise caution while taking decision. What sort of decision is required, when and why? For instance, a leader may decide to maintain the status quo, that is, a change is not required, let things go on as it is. Or he may decide that in this particular area we need certain changes. But how these changes are to be brought about? They could be incremental, that is, with a very slow degree these changes could be brought about. Or the situation may warrant that the changes are brought about all of a sudden. So, all of these things depend upon the prevailing situation. And keeping these things in consideration, a leader has to take certain decisions. And following the decisions, they have to be implemented. There are different models of decision, and a leader has to use his or her judgment to choose the best model that would fit into the prevailing situation. And then, last but not the least, is the ethics, the integrity, the honesty of the leader. Whether in decision making or in management of resources, planning, or whatever role the leader is playing, whatever activity he or she is performing has to be absolutely ethical. It can neither violate the rules of the organization, the law of the land, or be unethical in any sense. Now, as I have mentioned before, this list can include many more elements. There could be many more equally important elements that comprise the term leadership. And finally, I would like to say about the concept of leadership that there are verbose definitions, very lengthy definitions that extol the behavior, the attributes, the quality of a leader. But ultimately, it boils down to one particular thing, that is, which comprises of very simple things like hard work, sincerity, honesty, discipline, etc. So, as I have been discussing, that now we have a modern view of leadership. A leader is not a person who scares us, who scares the employees. If the employees are scared of a particular leader, we do not call him or her an effective leader. That is why power, authority, these things should not emanate solely from the position. The leader should not rely only on his position to make people work. He or she should not resort to coercive measures, that is, forcing people to work. Then it is very important to walk the talk. What is it? That is, the leader should be the role model. He should do what he says. That is, there should not be any gap between preaching and practice. He should practice what he himself preaches. If he wants people to be sincere, he has to be sincere. If he wants people to be honest, he has to be honest. That is, he himself or she herself has to be the role model who the people would like to emulate. Now, let us discuss leadership styles. We have already discussed the concept of leaders in educational organizations, then the meaning and nature of leadership, and now we are coming to the third topic of our discussion, which is leadership styles. Now, what is meant by leadership style? What is it? The manner, the approach of issuing directions, planning, taking decisions, implementing the plans, setting objectives from goals, and finally, the concern for people. All these things and maybe many more, together they decide the leadership style. Now, you may ask, is there any particular leadership style that happens to be effective? And is there any particular style that happens to be ineffective? Well, let us try to find the answer to these questions. There are certain theoretical propositions based on which leadership styles can be determined. First of all, one school says that the personality traits of the leaders determine the leadership style. Certain traits of the personality are there. For instance, intelligence, the skills for communication, oratory skills, and things like that. That these are the factors that are closely associated with the personality of the leader that makes him an effective leader or an ineffective leader and renders his style effective or ineffective. So, this is according to one school of thought. Then another school of thought says, it is not what the leader is, but what the leader does. The school which propounds personality traits vouches that what the leader is, that is, the leader is born. If he or she has a set of traits, a set of attributes, certain qualities, that person will make a good leader. But this particular school of thought doesn't believe in it. It argues that it is not what the leader is, but what the leader does, that is, the behavior of the leader. It has been seen that for different successful leaders of the world, for instance, we have had Napoleon, we had Washington, Gandhi, and so many. But did they share the same set of attributes? No, they were different. They had their unique personalities, they had their own styles of functioning, but nevertheless they were all successful leaders, and you may cite many other examples in this regard. So, this is the argument that has been put up by the behavioristic school of thought. It says that no, it is not a particular set of attributes. Rather, what the leader does in a particular situation. A person who is task oriented may happen to be relationship oriented on some other occasion, and vice versa. So the behavior of the leader is very important. Then coming to the contingency theory, it says that leadership is a function of the leader himself, that is the personal attributes, the followers and the situational variables. So this school of thought does not totally rule out the school of thought which vouches personality traits. It says that yes, personality traits are important, but equally important are the followers. How? Their expertise, their experience, and so on. And then the situational variables, whether the situation demands task orientedness, or a situation demands relationship orientation, or a situation demands a combination, a balance of both. These things, the situational variables, are important for adopting a particular style. So this is the contingency theory of leadership. There are several other theories also, for instance the path goal theory, the three-dimensional view of leadership, etc. But we shall not go into the details of these theoretical propositions. Instead, we shall take up a discussion on the different styles of leadership. Now, as we have been discussing that there may be different styles of leadership. First of all, the autocratic style. And I am sure we are all familiar with this particular style. It is an authoritarian style. There is a great degree of supervision, a great degree of control, command. Supervision can be healthy, or too much of it could make the people feel that there is a lack of freedom. They might feel suffocated. So there is a high degree of control, and then there may be the dictatorial style associated with it, that is using force, authority, coercion, power to get things done. You have to do this. The leader may say, by this time. How you are going to do it, I don't know. As we have been discussing, task orientation. So we feel that autocratic style is nowadays considered to be a style that has been rejected. But it has been seen that it could work in limited situations. There are certain situations where autocratic style is also needed. We cannot totally rule it out. But in the long run, this doesn't help because it demotivates people and silently breeds passive resistance. With prolonged autocratic style, with continued authoritarian style, people become more and more passive. They become more and more disoriented from the goals of the organization. Then coming to the participatory style. As we know that since the last century, democracy has been taking roots in different parts of the world. Even the erstwhile communist countries, many of them today have gone for democracy. And no wonder, participatory style, which emphasizes democracy, is considered to be better than the authoritarian style, autocratic style. This involves the participation of the people. The people take shared decisions. Teams are made out of groups. The people have a close cooperation among them, and those with lesser potential, they are not discarded, but a humanitarian view is taken, and when they work in a team with people with more expertise and experience, they get an opportunity to learn and the organization in turn benefits by putting to use their potential in an optimum way. So we see that in the participatory style, the team happens to be very important. Inputs are taken from the team while taking decision, and these inputs are valued, and as a result the team feels empowered. This is the modern concept of shared governance, and especially in educational organization, we nowadays talk about shared governance where the teachers would have a proactive role in the decision making process. It would not be the prerogative of only the persons who are in the higher echelons of the hierarchy. So we see that this is very important, this particular style for empowering people, and following a combined way of taking decisions, the people feel that they have a stake in it, they have a role to play, and hence they are responsible for the decisions taken. There is no blame game at the end. But even this particular style has to be adopted with caution. The leader should not lose sight of the fact that he is the head of the team. He has certain responsibilities. He cannot pass on the buck and start blaming the team for any failures. He has to keep in mind that ultimately he is the one who is responsible. Too much reliance on the team can also make the leader passive, but the leader needs to be active on his toes every moment. So this style has to be practiced with certain cautions. Now the third style, this is called delegative or laissez-faire. Now in this particular style, there is minimum or no control. If the group is having less expertise, then when there is minimum control and supervision, the group can flounder. Whereas in autocratic style, if the people are lacking experience or there is shortage of time, that style could work. And here if the people are having great degree of expertise and experience and they are already motivated, then this particular style could be adopted. So friends, we would like to wind up the discussion by saying that there is no particular effective or ineffective style of leadership. It depends. No particular style can be suitable for all situations. The leader has to decide in which situation which style would be applicable, and it would depend upon the followers, on him himself, the resources available, the time available, and things like that. Thank you.